Welcome to the most electric podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is Tanner Kern, certified G, bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. And this right here, this is G Money Grant Mitchell. He is very sensitive, so I'm not going to make fun of him today, and you can't teach that. Welcome to Ride the Line. Bada boom. Ride the liners in the room. How you doing?
Am I supposed to speak for all the people? I don't know. I'm so sensitive, Tanner. Do I have the responsibility to speak for the audience now?
Yeah, you can speak for the audience. It's fine.
Well, if I'm speaking for the audience, I'm saying, you know what? I'm so excited these boys are back in business because episode number 2 was pretty electric. And I got to say, we did some really accurate predictions. We went back, we predicted every game in the round of 64 for March Madness. And one of the big things we're going to talk about later on in this show is we were very low on Purdue. Look what happened. You only get that here at Ride the Line.
Yeah, I mean, Purdue sucks. That's the bottom line. Grant, I won my first women's college basketball bet last night, so I'm pretty stoked about that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But before we do that, make sure you guys subscribe, like, share the podcast, do it all. We're trying to grow the Ride the Liner audience. Are you a liner, Grant? Are you a liner?
I'm not a liner. I'm a rider, Tanner.
Are you riding?
I am riding. Yes. As a matter of fact, I am riding.
So, guys, make sure you subscribe to the pod. Head over to WSN. Check out all our content. We have a lot of great stuff going right now. But anyways, Grant, I won a women's college basketball bet last night. I parlayed Villanova minus 10.5 blindly, and these girls could ball at Villanova, and I parlayed that with Louisville money line, and they got some dogs on Louisville.
Yes, they do.
They got some dogs, so that was a big win for me last night.
Did you see the post game handshake shenanigans that happened in that Louisville game?
Yeah, with that like Haley Van something girl or whatever. She was basically like, have fun. I think she told the girl like, have fun on spring break, you expletive. I was like, this is awesome. This is awesome.
Cancun on 3. 1, 2, 3, Cancun.
Yeah, this is awesome. So that was pretty cool. I didn't watch that game because they beat the crap out of them. I was watching the Villanova game, and then I also placed another parlay last night. And my minus 1250 bet on Indiana was the leg that ruined it. So that was really nice. That was nice, losing a minus 1250, and probably didn't even help the parlay. I think the rest of the legs lost too, which is fine, but that was disappointing.
You got to know better, Tanner. You never added minus 1250 to a parlay. Come on.
No, I just want a little extra love, Grant. You know, I need a little extra entertainment. I had nothing going on last night. NBA was good for me last night, but I was sitting there. I'm like, I want to watch some girls go at it, and I did that. And I lost one, and I won one. I profited. So, how's your life?
My life's good. I'm over here at the new apartment that I was talking about on the last episode. The one really annoying thing for me, I gotta say, is that I ordered all of the big stuff. So couch, coffee table, dining table, dresser, desk, everything you can think of, I ordered it. So really, I was just kind of Bob the Builder for about 4 or 5 days there. And I'm still assembling stuff as it showed up. I've lost track of what's still coming in the mail. So every time I get an alert that you have a package in the hub or there's a package right outside your door, I'm blown away because I open it up and I don't even know what's going to be inside. So in a way, it's almost like Christmas, but it is also a lot of manual labor. So I'm a little bit over that, but it is a very nice place. I'm really enjoying it. Got a really cool setup over here. I know you can't see it because we're on the green screen, but I got a pretty cool background. And yeah, look forward to maybe showing it off one day.
We're at a dive bar. What are you talking about?
A dive bar? What do you mean? Oh, well, yeah, we are at a dive bar. Sorry. I thought you were telling me that I should put a dive bar in my apartment. I was thinking, how is that going to work?
No, Grant, you should just nuke some March Madness bets. And that's what we're doing on this show, week in and week out. Best show in sports betting entertainment. Grant, I have one question for you and everyone here tonight. Are you
Let's
riding?
hear it, Tanner.
You ruined it. Are you riding?
I am riding, Tanner, yes.
All right, let's start with March Madness opening weekend, Grant, if you're riding. Purdue sucks. We said it the whole time on this show. They lost to number 16, Fairleigh Dickinson. That's only the second time that's happened. UMBC did it a few years ago against Virginia, correct?
Yep, UMBC. And the craziest part about that game, by the way, that people seem to have forgotten, UVA didn't just lose that game. They lost by 20. Like, that's the craziest part about that game.
Yeah, I mean, that was interesting to see a 16 seed knocking off. It was funny on Twitter too, like after UMBC was like, oh, we've been alone, we need some friends. And they were tagging, obviously, Fairleigh Dickinson after beating Purdue, one of the fakest teams, probably the fakest team in the history of college basketball. Zach Edey, whatever you say, 21 points, 15 rebounds. He was really good. But the fact of the matter is these guys got beat by the shortest team in the country, and they have the tallest player in the country.
And they were the tallest team in the country too. And that tallest player you're talking about, he's 7'4". He's going to be the national player of the year. So that just never, ever should have happened. And I want to say that Zach Edey was good. He was good for the first half and the first half of the second half, but he took one shot in the final 13 minutes and 47 seconds. If you're playing a 16 seed, that is so beyond unacceptable to see your team start to get came back on, and then you go down, you're about to lose, and you can't get one shot up as a 7'4" player of the year going against the smallest team in Division I. Totally unacceptable. I am so happy that they lost, not because I have an agenda against Purdue, but because that is just unacceptable for a player of the year. That's unacceptable for any great player, much less the one that's supposedly the best in the country.
And I mean, Fairleigh Dickinson just outgritted them. That's what I would say. And even against FAU in the second round, they played really hard basketball on the defensive side of the floor, which was fun to watch. And it gave Purdue a lot of trouble. But when you have a guy that tall, that big in the paint that you can just get the ball down to, and you can't beat the shortest team in the country that plays in the NEC that, quite frankly, was missing layup after layup in the second round of the tournament and showed how bad they were. It's embarrassing. And Purdue, you should be ashamed of yourself. And Purdue has a history of losing in the big games.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a program that you just can't trust. The last 3 March Madnesses, if you take out the 2021 that was canceled because of COVID, the last 3 March Madnesses, Purdue has been in all of them. They've lost to a 13 seed, a 15 seed, and a 16 seed. Sure, you can look at the program getting a number 1 seed and saying, wow, that's so good of us. But if those are your results in the big moments in March Madness, what do you do as a program? You can't call this year a success.
No, you can't. It was not a successful year. Big Ten championship is not what a 1 seed goes in the tournament to hang their hat on. They want to win a national championship or at least get to the Final Four, and unable to do that. The FDU Cinderella story ended in the next round against FAU. FAU, after the game against FDU, they were acting like they beat a 1 seed. They were acting like they upset the world. Like I saw guys on the bench like waving. I saw the dunk at the end of the game. That was a bunch of bullshit. And then you got like these guys like going nuts. Like they just beat the greatest basketball team. They beat the freak. It was like the 1980 US versus Russia. Like that's how excited they were. Okay. They survived against an NEC team that was 0 for 8 on layups in the first half. They shot 28% from the field for the first half, and the team's the shortest in the country. And you're acting like it was a big deal to win that game. That's a problem.
I don't think so much that it was them celebrating beating a 16 seed, like you said, acting like they beat a 1 seed. I think it was the fact they made the Sweet 16. They were 31-3 in the regular season, which was tied for the second best record in all of America, but nobody really talked about them because it's Florida Atlantic. They get a 9 seed again, despite having such a superior record. I think it was just the fact that they made it to that Sweet 16 stage. They made it to the second weekend of college basketball is what that got them so excited. Was it bullshit that they were going for 360 windmill tomahawk dunks at the end of the game? Yeah, it was. And maybe was it a little overblown? Sure. But these are college kids also. You got to remember, these are just kids. They're doing what they love. It was a big achievement for them. And Florida Atlantic has played good. Fairleigh Dickinson, like you said, they did play very well. I actually tweeted this. I was shocked at how good of basketball that FDU played. It's just the simple fact of they don't have a ton of talent and they are the shortest team in America. So you could tell they were going to lose at some point. But it was actually a very competitive game of basketball. And I do think Florida Atlantic, not going to say they're going to win, but I think they could be competitive in the Sweet 16.
No, they're going to get their doors knocked off by Tennessee. They play Tennessee, right?
They do play Tennessee, and that's going to be tough for them because of how physical Tennessee is on defense. That's a bad matchup for them.
Will blow their freaking doors off, and I hope they do, because what I saw, it's one thing to celebrate with your team, but when you're like waving goodbye and all that shit to a 16 seed that's in the NEC and isn't that good and missed all the damn layups, that's a problem. I have a problem that I hope Tennessee goes in there and just absolutely wallops this mid-major pieces of you-know-what, because that's what I think of these kids. They're not just kids, Graham. They're not.
They're kids, Tanner.
They're not kids. When you're betting on them, they're not kids. They got to be better.
Another couple of number one seeds that were in action. Well, actually, we should mention another number one seed did lose. Now, they didn't lose in the round of 64 like Purdue did, but Kansas lost to Arkansas. I told you it was the battle of the real Kansas, and Arkansas won that one. In the round of 32, they move on as the 8 seed. So we've already got half of the top seeds out. This is something that I found pretty interesting. There have only been 2 Final Fours where every number one seed has not played in it. Sorry, I could have said that better. There's only been 2 Final Fours without a number one seed present. And the fact that we're getting close to that point, and there's a world in which both number one seeds lose on Thursday and Friday. Actually, I think they both play Friday, so Friday. And we don't have a number one seed in the Elite Eight. I mean, that would be pretty crazy. And I don't know if there's still any perfect brackets left, but I have a hard time believing that there's one person who said every number one seed was going to lose before the Elite Eight.
Well, Houston's dog water. So
are we starting with Houston? Or are we starting with Alabama?
We can start with whoever you want to start with, but I'll tell you what, Houston's terrible.
All right, let's talk about Houston then. So I will give you the unbiased coverage, and then Tanner will give you his opinion on the Houston Cougars. So they obviously made it into the Sweet 16, or else we wouldn't be talking about them. They have looked not the best so far. They beat Northern Kentucky 63-52. That's only 11 points over a 16 seed. And then they were down by 10 points. I want to say it was 41-31 against Auburn at halftime. Now they came storming out of halftime. They won the second half 50-23. And that's pretty unbelievable. I mean, do the simple math. That's on pace to win the game 100-46. And they do have a couple of key injuries. Marcus Sasser's dealing with a thigh injury. Jamal Sheed has a knee problem. Both have been playing, although Sasser didn't play in the second half of the first game. And Houston's coach said that Sheed's knee injury, he thinks, he's very concerned by it. You've got to look at Houston over the course of the season. And like I was making the case, they have defense that translates. That's why even though they're playing a Miami team that is really good, a lot of people still like Houston to win because Miami doesn't get stops when it needs to. But with these injury problems and the fact that they have fallen behind in both of the early games, it leads people like Tanner, to think that they are going to be facing an exit. And so why don't you make the case of why Houston sucks? Because I know you hate Houston.
Well, Houston does suck. They're not good. They don't play good basketball. They don't have any grit. They fall apart late. This is the Houston Cougars. I mean, they really haven't played anyone. I don't look at Auburn and say like, wow, that was a big win in the second half. Like, hell, if you put me against a bunch of 6th graders, I could beat someone up too. You know, that's what I look at this game. Miami and Houston are very, very even on defense, offense. They both shoot about the same from the field. I think Houston's definitely a little more physical, but they haven't played that ACC schedule. And when I look at that, I think that the Hurricanes are going to get the job done. Sasser's injury is really hurting Houston. He has not been the same player. He hasn't been on the floor consistently. And Houston's going home.
Saying Miami and Houston have an equivalent defense is one of the most outlandish things that I have ever heard you say.
No, it's not. It's not outlandish.
Yes, it is. Miami's defense is Miami has personnel. That doesn't mean that they have defense. Houston, all of their players will switch 1 to 5 if they have to. They are ultra aggressive on the perimeter. They are very good at rebounding. Miami goes through spurts where they don't even try to play defense.
When they do, though, they're pretty damn good.
When they do, yes. Now, this is the whole thing with Miami. This is why their season has been such a cacophony. They could legitimately have been a top 2 seed had they played at their best the whole season. And maybe you can say that about any program, right? But Miami, when they don't play their best, they look like they shouldn't even be in the NIT. That's the whole problem with Miami. It's why they went up so early, so quickly on Indiana, and then all of a sudden the game's basically tied. And then they end up winning by double digits at the end. It's this problem with Miami. You never know what you're going to get from them. Is it going to be a solid game where they're on and then the next game they're off? Is it going to be 5 minutes of them being off and then 10 minutes of them being on? It's impossible to predict. And I'll just spoil my pick now. I can't trust that inconsistency against Houston, even though I love their upside. Like, they have Final Four upside. They just can't continually hit that standard.
Well, I like taking the points with 7.5 there, and I think Isaiah Wong's going to have a big day. I'm not saying Houston pulls off the upset necessarily. I'm not saying Houston. I'm not saying Miami pulls off the upset necessarily, but I do like the points there at 7.5. I think that's just way too many. Now, when I flip to the Alabama game, I would take the Tide over San Diego State and lay the points.
What's the line for that game? Do you know off the top of your head?
It was 6.5 or 7.5.
Let's see. Why don't we head on over to FanDuel Sportsbook, Tanner, and let's take a look here. I was already on FanDuel because I was looking up the odds to win it all, and Alabama has the best odds there at plus 320. So FanDuel has Alabama at minus 7.5, and obviously SDSU at plus 7.5. For that, so you're laying the 7.5 on Alabama.
Yeah, definitely. I think offensively, it's going to make difference if they can make their threes. Obviously, Brandon Miller hasn't been great. Alabama lives and dies by the three. It's kind of the same thing like in the way like Houston. You look at them. If they don't show up on offense, if they're missing shots, because they're a very good shooting team, but if they're missing shots, that's a problem. You look at Alabama, they live and die by the three ball. If they're missing their threes, they are not the same team as if they're making their threes. I know that's a basic explanation, but they live and die by the long ball. And if you can't make them, you have a chance of losing. Hopefully they can make them against San Diego State. And I would lay the points here. I'd look at first half for Alabama. Brandon Miller needs to be a lot better than he was in the first weekend of the tournament. Obviously got a lot of stuff going on outside of the floor, off the court, right? But I still like Alabama a lot. If I had to pick one seed to bet on, it would be them. But I wouldn't bet on either of these teams to win the national title, quite frankly.
So here's the thing with Alabama. Alabama is such a weird prospect because they've won both of their games in this tournament by 20 plus points. But like you said, Brandon Miller just hasn't been good. Sure, he scored 19 points in the round of 32 against Maryland, but it took him 17 shots to get there. He's shooting 22% from the field and from three in this tournament. That's really bad for a guy who's going to finish top 3 in player of the year voting, most likely. And SDSU is a problem for these guys, or at least they can be. See, unlike you, I'm on the opposite side. I would be picking up the points San Diego State, especially at plus 7.5. Let's look at some of Alabama's losses this season. UConn, I'm just going to read them to you, and then we'll go back to it at the end. UConn, Gonzaga, Oklahoma, that's the one I'm going to omit from my list, Tennessee, and A&M. So I'll read them again, and I'll take out Oklahoma. UConn, Gonzaga, Tennessee, A&M, Texas A&M. What do those teams all have in common? They are supremely physical. And SDSU might not have the same size as some of those. Like they don't have a Sonogo on their team who's just bullying everybody on the offensive glass. But they are a very physical team. They're not afraid to get up in you. Their offense is the weak point of their team, but their offense isn't bad at all. So if they can slow down Alabama just a little bit, if they can apply some of that pressure on the perimeter, and we've already seen Alabama isn't making a bunch of their threes right now, I think they could absolutely keep this game close. Now, pulling off the upset, that's an entirely different prospect. But plus 7.5, I think that's a big enough spread to where you should be picking up the points there with the Aztecs.
I can't trust San Diego State based on who they played. And when you look at the teams that Alabama has lost to, Texas A&M, road game. Tennessee, road game. SEC, road game. Gonzaga was at home. Obviously, Gonzaga shows up some days. Sometimes they don't. UConn was really early in the season, so I'm going to throw that one away. That was when UConn was playing extremely good basketball. Then they fell off. Now they're starting to get back on track. But I think Alabama comes out with a vengeance this weekend, shows up a little more, lay the points with them. Brandon Miller's got to be good. They got a really good team around. If they're making their threes, it's going to be lights out. It's kind of like, I'll equate this to girls basketball because that's what I was watching last night. Miami made their threes last night against Indiana. They were lights out from beyond the arc, and that's the reason they were able to win.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, I said the same thing last show. Alabama's all about do they make their threes or not. But like you, the question of do I like the number 1 seeds or do I like the field? Obviously, this is the Sweet 16. So we've got 2 number 1 seeds and 14 non-number 1 seeds. I'm absolutely taking the field here. I think both number 1s have their problems. I just explained why SDSU is a problem for Alabama. And while you're low on Houston, the actual reason that Miami might be a tough matchup for them is Houston is a defensive team. That's what they pride themselves on. But Miami, even though their offense is so frustrating because it can turn into hero ball a lot of the time, what they are very good at is making difficult contested shots. And if that's happening, if those shots are falling, it mitigates the impact of Houston's defense. And all of a sudden, the onus gets put onto Houston to match them on offense. And like we said earlier, Sheed is injured, Sasser is injured. So that's going to be a problem. So both number 1 seeds, even though they're still favored in the games, obviously, they're both sort of looking at opponents that can at least pick at their weaknesses. And if that comes back to haunt them, don't be surprised. Like I said earlier, 2 number 1 seeds already out. Very possible we lose both of the others before the Elite Eight.
Well, that's the great part about basketball in the sense of it's not like football where you can enforce your will on someone for a full game and wear them down. Like, if Alabama plays San Diego State in football, it's not even going to be close because Alabama is just going to wear them down throughout the game. In basketball, it comes down to making shots. I don't think either one seed wins a national championship. I have my official pick of the NCAA tournament. I hope you're ready for this.
Are you giving it to us now, or are you saving it for the end?
No, I'm giving a future pick right now because I'm riding.
Okay.
Are you riding?
Okay. I'm buckled in.
UConn plus 900, 9 to 1.
Oh, I don't, Tanner. Come on now. I'm the UConn guy on this show. I said they were my favorite long shot. You can't just steal my pick.
I'm back on the Huskies. Adama Sanogo, love him. Love this team. Caravan, love him. Absolutely love him. And here's why, Grant. You ready for this? 5 Sweet 16s. They've been to 5 Sweet 16s. What's their 5th one? Go to the back. Restart. UConn in their past 5 Sweet 16s have been to 5 Elite Eights, 4 Final Fours, and they've won 3 national titles. They're playing good basketball. I like what Dan Hurley's got this team going right now. They're physical as hell. They're beating teams down when they're supposed to beat them down. Iona, they didn't start great, but I'll equate that to, nerves in the NCAA tournament to start it. But what they did against St. Mary's, they were supposed to go out and steamroll them, and they absolutely did that, and I love it. They have not easy game, I shouldn't say, but they're going to beat Arkansas, I believe, and I do think their path is easiest to get to the Final Four.
Yeah, I think they're absolutely going to beat Arkansas as well. And if we look ahead at what their path would be, they're going to play the winner of Gonzaga UCLA. So that would be interesting. In my head, I think they're hoping they play UCLA just because UCLA is a little more injured than Gonzaga is. And I could see them wanting to get into a defensive battle more than an offensive battle. And then from there, it could be one of 4 different teams, but it would be the Houston, Miami, Xavier, Texas. So they do have a pretty clear run to the championship. Absolutely. I love that stat, by the way. 5 Elite Eights, 4 Final Fours, 3 national championships. That's a pretty good stat.
Yep. Saw it on Twitter. On the UConn Twitter page, one of the UConn fan Twitter pages. So shout out to whoever it was. But UConn plays physical basketball. Absolutely love them right now in their path. I think they can beat Gonzaga or UCLA, quite frankly. Get Gonzaga out of here. Get the Drew Timme show out of here. They almost lost to TCU. None of these kids are good. Like, none of these teams this year are good. I can't sit here and be like, okay, that team, I know they're going to show up and take care of business. Everyone's like, I feel like playing basketball all day. I don't feel like playing basketball all day. Be better.
Yep, and UConn obviously is a 4 seed. There's some other non-number 1 seeds, non-favorites that are looking really good. Kansas State had a super impressive win against Kentucky. Oscar Tshiebwe went for 20-something, I forget the number, and 18 rebounds, and it didn't matter. Kansas State, they do a lot of things well, and they are still decent on the interior, but they don't have a huge presence. And when you're going against someone like Oscar Tshiebwe, you want that, obviously. Noel was just sensational on offense. He scored 27, had 9 assists. He was lighting it up, making a highlight plays, no-look alley-oops, some crazy three-pointers to keep the game close. They look really good. Creighton is the 6th seed. They were my dark horse. I said I think that they're making a run to the Elite Eight. They look very good. There are a lot of teams out there. UCLA, Gonzaga are obviously playing each other, and Texas also still alive as a 2 seed. All the attention's going to Houston and Alabama, but like we were saying earlier, the field, when it comes to 1 seeds versus the field looks so much better.
100%. The field looks tremendous. Like, Creighton's a team that could do something special, especially in the Elite Eight. If they can beat Princeton, I think they can beat Alabama. They rank well in the KenPom ranking. So there's a lot of teams that have a great chance of winning. And we're going to break down all these games in a little bit, but we got to transition into the NBA. Grant, what sports book are you betting on the NBA on tonight?
Well, since I already had FanDuel up, I will most likely be betting on FanDuel Sportsbook tonight. And you can bet on FanDuel with a $1,000 bonus. If you go over to WSN, the World Sports Network, and you click our FanDuel promo code, it'll take you straight to FanDuel. You can sign up and you can get a $1,000 no sweat first bet. What that means is that you can bet up to $1,000 with your first bet. And if that bet misses, FanDuel will refund you in full, again, up to $1,000 in the form of bet credits. Those bet credits can be used as stakes on a wager. And if that wager wins, you win a cash prize just like always. So it's basically a second chance. It's a second life if you miss your first bet. So that's pretty cool. But what NBA games will I be betting on? That might not be so important. Why don't we talk about what NBA games have been going on over the weekend and the stories that have emerged from them, because some of the top contenders in the NBA are falling apart. And we started episode number 1 by talking about your beloved Celtics. And I really hate to do it to you, but a team that looks really bad, the Boston Celtics.
They're not healthy, though. They're going to be healthy tonight against the Kings, and they're going to walk into Sacramento and whoop that ass.
You think so? The Kings are sneakily one of the best teams in the NBA.
I like the Celtics perimeter defense. I think that's going to make the difference. The Kings are good. I don't want to take anything away from them, but I think the Celtics perimeter defense combined with the fact that pretty much everyone is probable to play tonight, that's a good sign. I think the 2 days rest was needed. Kings had the bad day yesterday, but we're not talking about tonight. We're talking about the Celtics, and the C's will be just fine down the stretch, Grant, because it's all about the C's.
Is it all about the C's? This is what I was saying earlier on. We have fallen so much in love with the Celtics brand and how well they started the season that we're overlooking where they're actually playing at, the level they're playing at. Now, they are not bad by any stretch of the imagination. They're still definitively a top 10 team in the NBA. But if you look at net ratings since the All-Star break, they are 10th. So are they top 10? Yes. But are they 10? That's what the numbers would lead you to believe. And they've lost 5 of their last 9. And their last 4 games, they've lost to the Jazz and the Houston Rockets. I mean, that was just a terrible loss. I don't have a ton of confidence in this team going into the postseason. And I've been like that for a month or two. And I'm growing less and less confident. Here's something that they also have to be concerned about. They are a half game from falling behind the 76ers in the standings. And you might say that doesn't change their path to the finals too much. That's true. But when they get to playing the Sixers, assuming it's going to be the Sixers versus the Celtics in the second round, all of a sudden that game 7, you're now on the road for it. Boston's really good at home, but Philadelphia is really good at home. And that's so important to have. And the fact they're about to let that slip out of their grasp, which I think they will, because no team is playing better than the 76ers right now. So I think the 76ers are going to go into the postseason as the 2 seed. And the Celtics are probably going to look back on it and say that was a really big missed opportunity.
I agree with that. Now, we see how important a Game 7 is at home, but the fact of the matter is Boston does own Philly, especially in the postseason. So I'm not super concerned about that, but you don't want to go to Philly and play Game 7. It's just it's not an ideal environment because of how psycho those fans are there. Same thing in Boston, though. So that Game 7 is going to mean something. I think the Celtics will be fine. Again, we're looking at all these teams like the Suns. They haven't been playing well. They're not healthy, right? When you're not healthy, the NBA is such a star-driven league. If you don't have your guys on the floor, it's going to be tough for you. So we'll see what the Celtics do tonight with their guys there. I'm laying the point, so hopefully when this comes out, the Celtics will have won by 5 or more, but we will see.
We will see. The Suns, you were just talking about them, so why don't we go ahead and go over to them. They've lost 4 out of their last 5 games, and I've got to ask the question, Tanner. Do you think that Phoenix is regretting trading for Kevin Durant?
Well, if Kevin Durant's not healthy, they regret trading for Kevin Durant because they gave away their whole bench. You know, we talked about this. I think we talked about this, at least with the Mavs game probably like three weeks ago, when the Mavs went toe to toe with them basically, and their bench just showed up and the Suns took everything for them to beat them. And over a 7-game series, the bench would be an issue for the Phoenix Suns. If they're not healthy, if their 4 is not healthy with Ayton, Paul, KD, and Devin Booker, you're going to have trouble. If they're on the floor, they're one of the best teams in the West for sure. They probably are the best team in the West. But if you're not healthy, that's the problem. KD needs to be healthy because you trade your whole bench away. So if you don't have your bench and you don't have KD, you're definitely going to lose. So I'm not surprised. And they've lost to some good teams. There was a few games where they got beat by bad losses. I think I'm thinking back. They lost to the Mavericks, right? They lost to, I don't know. They lost to the Jazz, maybe? Who'd they lose to?
Let's see here. Why don't I go ahead and pull this up? So in this stretch where they've lost 4 out of their last 5, they lost to the Thunder, they lost to the Bucks. You can forgive that.
Yeah.
They lost to the Warriors.
And the Mavericks,
you can forgive that. And the Kings. So they're not terrible losses, but still, no team that a lot of people are picking to win the NBA Finals should be losing 4 out of 5.
No, I agree with that, but it's health. Like one injury makes such a difference in the NBA. These teams are not well-rounded teams. They're solely relying on star power.
I don't know if it was the last episode that I talked about, but it's injuries and you can't judge a team because of the injuries. That's true most of the time, but Kevin Durant has missed pretty much half of the season every year that he's come back since his Achilles tear. Chris Paul's injured a lot. Devin Booker's already missed over half the season. You can't really make the excuse, oh, we never saw this coming. One of the great things about Mikal Bridges, which I haven't heard anybody mention since he got traded, is that he's an Iron Man. I mean, I don't think he's missed a practice in the NBA, or at least he had some crazy streak where he didn't until he missed a game. I don't remember exactly what the case was, but he shows up every night, and Cam Johnson's really not that far off. He had an injury to his face, but he was still out there playing with the mask on. You can't replace availability. What do they say in sports, Tanner? The best ability is availability. And the fact that you traded for someone, got rid of all of your depth, got rid of all the things that made you good as a team, and you bring in this guy who's injured, you just have to factor it into the equation that he's not going to be there that often. So do I feel bad for the Suns? No, they should have seen this coming.
I can't sit here and say that he's not going to be there, because down the stretch in the postseason, you got to play through a little more pain than they probably are playing through right now, knowing that their position's kind of set. And I mean, the regular season's coming to an end. So if you have a time to get healthy right now and you're the Phoenix Suns, you're going to do it. With that being said, though, if KD was seriously hurt and he did not play in the postseason, forget about all your Suns' future bets, because they're not winning. And that makes the West even more wide open. And if that's the case, I like Golden State at plus 550.
No, we've been over this. Do not take Golden State. They are 8-29 on the road. And guess what? They're the 6th seed. They're going to be on the road throughout the playoffs. It's a terrible bet. They can win every home game they play, and
they're third in bookmakers' eyes right now, Grant. Don't disrespect them like that.
Tanner, you know this. You're smarter than this. That doesn't mean the bookmakers think they have the third best chance to win the title. It means they break lines down in which they assign odds to values that people will place bets on. The Warriors are such a big brand. They're the defending champions. They have a diehard fan base. They know people will see that and bet on them at plus 550. Not because they're the third most likely to win the title, but because they can get bets out of users.
Nah, I think they would bump them up even more if they wanted to get bets out of users. You just disrespected not only Steph Curry, but Aisha Curry, and I don't appreciate that.
Listen, I'm not disrespecting Steph Curry. I'm disrespecting everyone else around Steph Curry. We need to talk about this, by the way. Steph Curry is now 35 years old. People don't look at him as an old player.
Crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. And we think of old now as LeBron, even though most people LeBron's age are already out of the NBA. And then if we're not looking at him, we're looking at Kevin Durant. Steph Curry's 35. It's crazy that he's that old, and it's crazy that he's this good. He is still right in the middle of his prime, and give it a few years, the way we're talking about how LeBron is defying father time, Steph Curry's going to be defying father time. What do great players do when they get older and they lose some of their athleticism? They traditionally go down to the low block. They develop more of a post-up game. Steph doesn't need to do any of that because he shoots the three so well. And even if he loses some of his explosiveness and shiftiness off the dribble, he can play off the ball. The Warriors' offense is all motion-based, so he's constantly running around the court. He can become maybe not a catch-and-shoot guy, but he can spend less time on the ball. He's going to transition perfectly into the older stages of his career. So are the Warriors going away? No, but are they going to win the championship this year? Absolutely not.
We'll see. Anyways, Grant, let's get into some NCAA tournament talk?
Yeah, why don't we go for it?
All right, let's start with Alabama and San Diego State. Again, we're just picking who's going to win straight up. We're getting to the point in the tournament where we can do this. The spreads are a little tighter. Obviously, Alabama's laying 7.5 points against San Diego State in this spot. But, Grant, who do you like to win outright?
Oh, man. I know you just said we're talking about straight up, and straight up I do like Alabama, but like I said earlier, I think this is going to be a close game. I think that 7.5 line is a little too big.
I'm going to be on Alabama. I would lay the points with them. It wouldn't be my favorite play. The one play that I've already locked in so far is a parlay, Alabama and Texas to win outright in the first game. So I'm going to be on Alabama here, money line wise, based on that parlay. And I would also recommend laying the points. I think Brandon Miller and the team come out, they shoot the three ball effectively, and they find a way to get to the next round because they do have a pretty clear path if they can just get through this game. As good as Creighton is, they're better than Creighton. If Princeton upsets Creighton, I see Alabama obviously winning that game.
Can you imagine if Princeton makes the Elite Eight to play Alabama, by the way?
It would be amazing. I would love to see Princeton in the Final Four, honestly. Let the Ivy boys in.
That's a good question. Has an Ivy League team ever made the Final Four?
Probably. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know like Ivy League football teams used to be really good, right? They used to win national championships. So I'm sure maybe back in the day, but the Final Four, like the NCAA tournament's not that old.
Well, it expanded recently, so that's what people think of
Okay.
it as.
Yeah. So probably not. I'm going to guess no.
Yeah, you're probably right. The game that is also on that side of the bracket, and it's what we were just talking about, Creighton versus Princeton. I've been really impressed with Creighton, but not so much that it's defied the expectations I had for them because I said they were going to make the Elite Eight. So now that they get to play Princeton when I thought they're going to be playing a tougher opponent, I'm absolutely going to take them to win this game. I've been very impressed by their offense and their defense. I mean, they held Baylor to 76 points, and 76 points is a decent amount, but they were getting stops when they needed to. They kept holding them at bay. Whenever Baylor was trying to claw back, Creighton would put their foot on their necks. I like the mentality that they're playing with. I like what Nemhard and Kalkbrenner are doing. I think they're going to get a very sizable win against these Princeton boys, unfortunately.
Yeah, the break definitely doesn't favor Princeton. Like you look at FDU playing the next day or 2 days after they upset Purdue, they had a lot of momentum coming to that game. So Princeton doesn't have that same momentum that they would have had if this game was 2 days after their last win there. But when you look at Creighton, they're really good. The Ken Pom ranking, some of the most indicative stats in college basketball. The national champion has had a top 40 offense and a top 22 defense since 2002. Creighton's got the 23rd ranked offense. They got the 13th ranked defense. They're a pretty good team. Don't be surprised if they sneak into the Final Four because they could beat Alabama. I'm not saying they do, but I'll definitely like them in this game, lay the points with them, and ride with the Blue Jays.
And I really like what you said about the break hurting Princeton, whereas it may have helped some of the lower seeds or, in fact, helped Princeton before. And I think that could come into play with Creighton, too, because we are not expecting Alabama to beat SDSU like we were just talking about. But if SDSU can use their physicality to keep Alabama's offense sort of out of its rhythm, and then they've got to turn around and play a red-hot Creighton team 2 days later, that's a launching pad for Creighton to make it into the Final Four. So I think those hopes are definitely alive. And if you give me just 1 second, I will tell you what Creighton's Final Four odds are. Let's see here.
They're 9-1 to win. I know that, to win the national championship.
So they are plus 175 to win the South region. Alabama is minus 145. I think those odds are just about correct. I don't think it's profitable enough to bet at plus 175, but I definitely do think it's alive.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Let's move down the bracket here. The East region, Madison Square Garden, the mecca of basketball. Florida Atlantic versus Tennessee. Volunteers here. Volunteers are laying 5.5 points. I would lay the points with them. I would take them to win outright. I think they're going to absolutely smoke FAU based on what I saw in that last game. The defensive pressure and the physicality that Tennessee is going to bring in this game is going to be too much for them. Look for Santiago Vescovi to have a huge game and the Volunteers to dance to the Elite Eight.
Yep, he's been really good ever since the team was dealing with some injuries earlier in the season. Volunteers, they play some maybe questionable defense because of how aggressive it is. And I do think that FAU is going to keep it maybe respectable, somewhere around 5 to 8 for most of the game. But when it gets to the end of the game, we know the good teams start to pull away. Then it turns into a free throw shooting contest. You're missing your shots. You're fouling them. They get 2 points. You miss your next shot. So I could see Tennessee winning this one by somewhere around 10, 11 points. And for that reason, the line's only 5.5. So I would definitely be going with Tennessee here too. Although there is, if I have to make the case for FAU, there's something to be said for winning games. And look at their strength of schedule. It's not good, sure, but they're 33-3 this season. They have pride. They have intensity. They have emotion behind them. I think they're going to come out and try to give Tennessee a punch early on, but I think the Volunteers, they're just too talented, too aggressive, and I think they will win in the end.
I agree. Kansas State, Michigan State. Michigan State's a 7 seed, but they are favored in this game, or at least they were when it opened. I'm assuming they're going to be favored at closing there, just because I think the Izzo trend, the way Michigan State's playing. I mean, Izzo's brought this team to the Final Four, I think 33% of his seasons at Michigan State. So right off that, that's a great future percentage. I think they were plus 1,100 to make the Final Four at the beginning of the tournament. Love the way they're playing basketball right now. I know Kansas State had a huge win over Kentucky, but I'm going to go with Michigan State here. I just think the coaching is elite. That's going to make the difference. These guys want to play for their coach, get into the Final Four. You saw how emotional he got after that win. This team's playing with a lot of momentum, and I think the break doesn't hurt them as much as a team like Princeton because they have played in the big games. They know how to play against these top tier opponents. So I would like Michigan State to get there, and that's why I'm going to take them.
I think the most impressive stat from Izzo is that he's made the Sweet 16 in 14 of his 27 years at Michigan State. So he's more likely to make the Sweet 16 than not, which is crazy. Reminds me of one of my favorite stats, which is that Tom Brady is more likely to make the Super Bowl than Steph Curry is to make a three-pointer. I don't know who found that out, but it was just crazy. But this Michigan State team, they are playing well. Tyson Walker is scoring the ball really well. Joey Hauser, we know, is a very capable second guy, and he can be your number one guy on different nights. The one thing I will say about them, and I wrote a full breakdown on this game, it's a matchup that is so evenly matched, because the one thing that both teams are missing is a dominant interior big man. It goes back to what I was saying with Kansas State versus Kentucky earlier on in the podcast. They survive on the interior. It's not like they're bad, but they don't have that one big man to dominate other teams. But then again, neither does Michigan State. So you're not going to have to worry about that. Michigan State shoots the three ball exceptionally well, and that's really good for momentum. The three ball nowadays is more electrifying than a poster dunk or a huge block at the rim. The 3-point shot is what sucks the soul out of your opponents. But Kansas State is so good in transition, and they're flashy. Marquise Noel, if you watch some of the handles and the passes and the shots that he was making in that game against Kentucky, you'll saw what it was doing to the Kentucky lifeline. It was flatlining them. So you have that going for both these teams. Neither one of them are exceptional on defense, but they have length and they play tough. Marquise Noel, he's only 5'8", so he was getting taken advantage of by a large Kentucky team. But Michigan State, I don't think, has that same sort of intensity. They're not always looking to take you off the dribble. They're trying to get their shooters in space. I think it's going to be such a close matchup. It doesn't surprise me that the line is only at 1.5, but I'm going to take the Kansas State Wildcats in this game. I think this is one of their best chances to make a deep run. They've never won a national title before. They made the Elite Eight in 2018, I want to say, and I don't know if they've ever been to the Final Four. But if they do, I think this could be the program to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm hoping Michigan State gets there, but we will see. Houston versus Miami, we kind of touched on this game. I'm not high on Houston in any way whatsoever, especially if Sasser's not going to be at full capability. When I look at Miami, they do play hero ball, but hero ball has a lot of upside, right? Like high floor, low ceiling. Am I saying that correctly? Low ceiling,
high ceiling, low floor.
High ceiling, low floor. Like they have the ability to skyrocket. And I think we see that in this game. If Houston doesn't come out and shoot effectively, Miami has the team to put them away if they're making their shots. I think the hero ball is going to work out in this case. Houston plays tough defense. They're going to force Miami into tough shots, but the Hurricanes have no problems taking those shots. So we've seen it a lot this year. Hero ball can work. Miami's upside is high, and I'm going to rely on that. I need Isaiah Wong to be better than he has been consistently this season. I need him to put a consistent, great performance together in this one, but I like him to do it. I think Houston's run into some trouble in this tournament. They've been able to bail themselves out because of the level of competition. If they don't show up in the first half against Miami, it's going to be very tough for them to claw their way back in the second half.
In a very weird way, because Miami looked so good against Indiana, I just don't think they're going to be good against Houston. Normally, it's the opposite. You say you ride with the hot hand. But Miami's track record is they're up and they're down. I think Houston is actually going to come out and throw a knockout punch to start the game. They have not done that in this tournament yet. And I know they feel like their backs are against the wall. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them go up 10 points early on. And if they do, I expect Miami to put a run together. But from that point on, you're going so hard against a team that focuses on defense. It's going to be hard to claw back. I think Houston gets a very close win.
Hook 'em.
Oh, hook 'em. Okay. We're moving on to the next game. I thought you were talking about Miami for hook 'em.
Hook 'em. No, it's all about the U, but hook 'em. Texas. This is my team to advance to the Final Four out of the Midwest region. I love Texas. Give me all the Texas players. I love it. Timmy Allen, Marcus Carr. Marcus Carr, you talk about a spark plug, a pesky guy, someone who's going to get after it consistently. That's Marcus Carr for you. I mean, he can do it all. He doesn't shoot great from the field, but he's a very good ball handler, and he makes teams make mistakes, especially when he's playing defense, which I love. This Texas team, I think, is just very, very complete. Xavier is having a really good run since the Big East tournament. but still, I don't like them in the spot. They beat Kennesaw State. They beat a Pitt team that, quite frankly, wasn't that good. And it's very inconsistent. Texas has been through the ringer a little more. Colgate, not that that was much of a trouble, but I like Penn State. I think that was a tough game for them, a tough battle. I think they're going to carry that momentum into this one and beat Xavier. Beat Xavier.
Come on.
Beat Xavier steadily. Is that the word?
I thought you were going to give us a score.
I was thinking about giving a score, but then I was thinking about a verb in my head too, and I kind of blacked out there for a second. They beat Xavier by 10 points.
Okay. I think 10 points is a lot. I will say
with foul shots.
Xavier scores in bunches. Like, they can just put up points in a flurry. So that's going to be the number one concern for Texas. But I am also going to go with the Longhorns. Hate Texas football team. Love Texas basketball team. I think they've got a really good program. I think their game translates well into March Madness. And there's something to be said for that, because they're good teams. Purdue, case in point. Their game just does not translate well into March Madness. I think Texas is set up for a deep run here. Marcus Carr, Timmy Allen, like you were saying, really good players, and really good players that can survive and thrive in those big moments where the game's really close. I think I think Texas moves on. Not going to go with 10 points like you, but I'll put it in 4 to 5 region, and I say they book their trip to the Elite Eight.
Love that.
And you know what would make that really cool is it would be Houston, in my bracket at least, it would be Houston versus Texas. And is that game in Texas, or am I making that up?
That game, the Midwest region, it's in the Midwest region. I think it's in like Oklahoma or something. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that. But Kansas City, Missouri. It's Kansas City. Okay. Close enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's close enough. You're going to get fans out there, and have an in-state rivalry. No, well, not rivalry, but an in-state matchup in the Elite Eight. I think that would be pretty cool.
Definitely. Okay, so we have 2 more games to discuss right now. First one is the UConn Huskies versus the Arkansas Razorbacks. What the hell was the coach doing for Arkansas, taking his shirt off? Like, act like you've been there before.
No, come on. That was awesome.
Like it was cool. Don't get me wrong, but like, what did you do? Your kids just won that game for you. You're up there freaking celebrating like you just went out there and had a massive comeback in the second half. Put your shirt on, stay calm, act like you've been there before, buddy. I mean, I'm okay with him going to the crowd and like pumping him up, but what the hell are you taking your shirt off for?
Did you ever see the clip of when Pete Carroll met DK Metcalf at the Combine? He had him in for an interview and he took his shirt off.
That's different though. That's so different.
It's building camaraderie with your guys. Like, I didn't mind it at all.
His guys were on the floor and he was on top of the announcer's desk, like pumping up the crowd with no shirt on.
Okay, but if you saw your coach doing that after you just took the defending champions and number 1 seeds out of the tournament, you wouldn't at least smile. You wouldn't think, like, you wouldn't love that energy from your coach.
That was a bad loss for Kansas, but I wouldn't expect him. If you're a player and you're a kid, like, that's pretty cool. But as an outsider watching this, like, act like you've been there before. Like, that just showed me that UConn is going to absolutely railroad his ass. Like, that's the bottom line.
See, I wouldn't doubt Arkansas because they have a good team and they are experienced quietly in the tournament. And they had some really good performances. I mean, excuse me. Council and Davis combined for 46 points in that game against Kansas. And you say Kansas shouldn't have lost that game. I don't think they should have won that game. Arkansas just outplayed them. They wanted it more. They showed more fight. They were able to execute in the big moments. I think this game against UConn is going to be fairly close, but I think UConn is just too versatile. And I also don't like the way that Arkansas is probably going to match up with Sonogo. And then, UConn, they've got shooters on the outside. They can play in transition. They can anchor down on defense. I think they're just too well balanced for Arkansas.
Yeah. UConn's going to get the job done. Get ready for it. It's going to happen.
I still don't like you claiming UConn like I didn't claim UConn.
I went to school there.
Okay, but you abandoned them.
I didn't abandon anything. I needed to see them play a little more grit. I needed to see them play some grit ball, and they did that I said, if UConn comes out against St. Mary's and does what they're supposed to do and absolutely beats up this WCC nonsense of a basketball program, okay, I was going to be back on UConn, and I am back on UConn now because they did what they were supposed to do. Boom. Last game.
Yep. You want to start us off?
Gonzaga, UCLA. You make your pick first. Save the best for last.
Who is my pick? I do think this game is close. Now, I would normally I wouldn't normally take UCLA, but the Clark injury, the just weird, nagging, freakish injuries that seem to keep happening to this team, it's got me concerned. And although I don't like Gonzaga and I don't like Drew Timme, it's not that I don't like Drew Timme, the player, but I just don't love him as the best player. Like, I don't think that's one guy that can take you to this crazy deep run in the tournament. And granted, he was maybe their best player when they made it to the championship, but then he was teammates with Suggs, he was teammates with Holmgren, and it kind of devalued that a little bit. I just don't know. I mean, Gonzaga's scoring the ball well. They're averaging 83 points per game in this tournament. UCLA is much the opposite. They hold their opponents to very low scoring. It's a weird one to predict, again, because UCLA, I think, is a lot better, but they're injured. I'm going to go with UCLA, but I'm not betting this game. But I don't think either one. I'm not high on either one making a deep run in the tournament, but I recognize that both teams are good too. So I'm really caught between two minds here.
Both teams are going to get beat by UConn in the second round. Doesn't matter who wins. You're just waiting to get beat by UConn. Jaime Jaquez, give me him over Drew Timme any day of the week. Give me the UCLA defense over Gonzaga's defense any day of the week, and UCLA can still score. So I'm going to be on the Bruins in this one. I don't like Gonzaga. I've never liked Gonzaga. I don't like any of these mid-major programs that think they have a chance in the and I'm not going to call Gonzaga mid-major, but I probably should because they play in the WCC and they haven't finished the job.
They're a low major, aren't they?
They're a low major. Gonzaga can't finish. That's the bottom line. Gonzaga can't finish. Doesn't matter if it's now, doesn't matter if it's next round or Final Four, national championship. They can't finish. They can't win the big game. Don't go with Gonzaga. Go with the UCLA Bruins.
I mean, that's always been a rule of March Madness is you fade Gonzaga, and then they made the national championship game, and so you kind of had to abandon the rule a little bit.
And they lost.
Yeah, they did lose. They did lose, and they got smoked by Baylor when they were supposed to win. So the rule came true eventually. But I mean, you could say that about for basically every team, and because only one team wins it every year. But yeah, I'm not picking Gonzaga to make a run here. And just real quick, obviously we have to see what plays out. But let's go through the brackets real quick. So you like Alabama and Creighton, and then you would take Alabama to win that. So you've got Alabama up there. Just give me your Final Four. How about that?
So my final four currently right now, I'm going to say Alabama comes out of the South region. I'm going to say Michigan State comes out of the East. UConn comes out of the West. And Texas comes out of the Midwest.
I'm going to go Alabama in the South, Kansas State in the East, UConn in the West. And I had Houston winning it all before the tournament started, but the injuries have concerned me, so I'll go Texas. So that would be so I have Alabama, Texas, UConn, Michigan State. You have Alabama, Texas, UConn, or did I say Michigan State? I have Kansas State, you have Michigan State. So we're 3 out of the 4, and then you have Michigan State, I have Kansas State in the East.
Yeah. So I like Michigan State. One of the states will get there.
Yeah, I don't think Tennessee. I don't see them. I don't see them putting it together for 2 back-to-back games.
Yeah, one of the states will get there. But I like Michigan State just because of Izzo. I think it's gonna be a great tournament down the stretch, and I'm very, very pumped about it.
I'm very pumped about it too. And Tanner, when you are doing your sports betting on this, make sure you go over to WSN. I talked about it earlier with FanDuel. You can go check it out. We have promo codes for all sorts of sports books, DraftKings, BetMGM, Caesars, whatever your heart desires. Go over there. You can get yourself some prize money to help spice up the entertainment and also the profitability of betting on sports. If you want to learn more about sports betting, we have guides, all sorts of stuff all over there. One thing's for sure, though, I loved watching March Madness last week. I mean, I don't know about you, but I had my TV on. Even when I wasn't watching and it was just on in the background, it never turned off for the 4 days that it was on.
Yeah, I mean, it's epic just having the games on. It's so much fun. I love it. I love gambling on March Madness. So make sure you head over to WSN. I can't wait for Thursday basketball. I can't wait for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, knowing who's going to the Final Four. And then baseball is right around the corner. So it's a great time.
You know what I will say, Tanner? I'm proud of you for not trying to push the baseball stuff while March Madness is on. I was worried you were going to try to propose it.
The World Baseball Classic has been electric, if you've seen some of the clips.
It has, yes. I mean, Trey Turner said it was the biggest hit of his career, right? The Grand Slam.
Yeah, I mean, last night you had Japan walking off. You had He had Randy Arozarena robbing the ball in the outfield. It's so much fun. I can't wait for baseball. But with that being said, let's finish basketball strong. Ride the line, nation. The Riders. Grant, you riding?
I am riding, and I'm riding into March Madness. Games start on Thursday. Make sure you guys are tuned in. Drop us a comment. Let us know what you thought of the show. Let us know what you want us to talk about on the next episode. I haven't written the docket yet, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to be giving some picks on that. And let's see if our final four predictions come true, because we told you who we think our final fours are. And next episode, we are going to have those in.
So make sure you guys subscribe. Head over to WSN. Keep riding. We'll see you next time. Grant, take us out.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. And until next time, make sure that you ride the line.